An operation which began overnight, the site of the A30 has been cordoned off and tunnelling experts have moved in to remove protesters who've taken refuge underground.
Many were plucked from tree houses, others were dug out of underground tunnels.
However, 5 protesters are still locked into a tunnel behind a steel door.
More than 100 police officers and 50 bailiffs moved in this morning to clear protesters from the Fairmile camp, which had been cordoned off overnight.
I'm warning you that if you resist or intentionally obstruct me or any of my bailiffs, you may be liable to arrest and prosecution for an offence.
This latest big road protest was unlike earlier road battles.
I didn't manage to get down for the eviction, but I did manage to record all the news footage, including a lot of live stuff.
Most of them have been here or hereabouts for the last 2 years protesting about the extension of the A30, the new 13-mile stretch that's going to be built at a cost of around £65 million.
This has been a good-natured operation so far, with the protesters even inventing a new game of Tickle the Bailiff. 5 protesters are believed to be locked onto blocks of concrete underground, and specialist engineers have been unable to get through. But the Under-Sheriff is satisfied with progress to date.
Catching them by surprise has been an enormous advantage because, of course, there were very few actually in the camp. They were, I believe, down in the pub, a lot of them.
The Under-Sheriff says up to 5 protesters could be in a major tunnel complex underneath this site. Air is being provided for them and food and water is available. The protesters had their own communication system, even to those underground. Have you heard from the police or the sheriff's officers yet? Have they been near you?
No, they haven't managed to get past the front door yet. We're still communicating with them, hoping they might abandon their positions, but I think it looks unlikely.
The protesters have nicknamed the main tunnel here Big Mama, and a specialist team of engineers has spent the day trying to find a way through a steel door at the entrance to the tunnel, which has been locked from the inside. The protesters were clearly relishing their efforts to frustrate the authorities.
Have the bailiffs got there yet?
They're just outside the door, wondering how to get in, I think.
Have they still not managed to penetrate the first door?
No, still haven't got in the first door yet.
The 4 men and a woman inside the tunnel say they have enough food for several weeks if necessary. An airline has been provided by tunnel engineers. The bailiffs will be back tomorrow morning with more equipment to try to find a way into the main tunnel. But it's likely to be several days before the camp is cleared altogether.
Police and sheriff's men arrived before dawn to continue to dislodge protesters from tunnels and trees. But the protesters are sticking firm to their last stand. This woman chained herself to an oil drum full of concrete to try to delay her inevitable eviction.
There's a barrel full of concrete and there is a through shaft going in there with a metal bar at the bottom, and she's handcuffed onto that, and she's been handcuffed on now for going on 36 hours. And they're drilling her out right now.
In the end, all she could muster was a weary wave to those who cheered her on.
With all the national news crews pretty much camped down in the local area, Fairmile managed to gather in unprecedented news coverage.
Contractors say they fear the tunnel could collapse.
Tunnellers have been in and looked at the door. It looks as if it's about 6 to 9 inches thick, and is covered in barbed wire, and I gather that is nailed up.
From first light, work has continued to try to reach the protesters still underground, but it's an operation which is becoming more complex and revealing more surprises. A steel-plated door at the mouth of the tunnel nicknamed Big Mama has now been removed, and late this afternoon tunnellers reached a second door further in. But beneath that, there's now believed to be an 18-foot shaft leading to a maze of other tunnels.
Well, each time we go through a door, they move back behind another door. And this time, I think there are 3 different directions they are likely to move. So we just carry on and we'll get there in the end.
Earlier today, protesters revealed a statement of demands.
Yeah, we'll only come out if our demands are met. And we would really like to know why there's so much secrecy surrounding the finances.
The Under-Sheriff said no, but above ground, other protesters said there would be no compromise.
They're very confident, they're in control, and I think they want to break the record for the longest eviction.
A doctor who climbed into the tunnel to check on the protesters confirmed they seemed capable of staying put for weeks.
They've got plenty of food and water, and they told me about half an hour ago that they could be down there for about a month. They've got enough supplies for that long.
It's the latest headache for the sheriff officers whose job it is to clear the site.
They've made their protest, they've got their news coverage, and there's really no reason why they shouldn't now come out. They're just costing money.
The sheriff's men have set tough wooden shoring around the tunnel walls, while these pipes feed air down deep into the ground. So far they have penetrated a 10-foot length of tunnel and overcome 2 thick steel doors, but what lies beyond this one remains a mystery.
We do have indications that there is an 18-foot shaft behind that door which is very tight fit, which means that once we get through that door they will no doubt scarper and go back down the shaft.
This eviction is now 3 days old and there's still no end in sight. With every obstacle the under-sheriff removes, another is put in his path.
A misty sunrise on this Devon hilltop brought breakfast for some, and for others the resumption of what has become an extremely hazardous operation. Contractors still have no complete picture of the warren that lies beneath these ancient oaks. Until they do, the remains of the treetop camp must be dismantled piece by piece and lowered to the ground. This morning, specialist radar, similar to that used in the West murder inquiry, has been brought in to help trace the network of tunnels, still thought to be up to 50 feet deep. In the past hour, news that the tunnelling teams have made further progress, breaching 2 more barricades. The 5 protesters have been barricaded more than 40 feet underground in a network of tunnels made up of a main shaft which splits into 2 chambers. Bailiffs have already broken through 3 steel doors erected to prevent their progress. But it's thought the protesters in the higher chamber and those in the deeper chamber have tonight dispersed into the maze.
The 5 trespassers have now dispersed down different tunnels, and it's unsafe to continue after them.
Those conditions have now forced a halt so that tunnel walls can be strengthened. The underground pursuit will continue for many hours yet. Current estimates run to tens of thousands of pounds. The sheriff's men may even withdraw completely if safety can't be guaranteed. Surrender may be the only option, and at present that's out of the question. Robert Hall, ITN, Devon.
Sweep these streets clean to the green. Rise from the iron that slew us down. Gather round tables again. When knights of old remember, dragons dwell in this land. Guinevere, she sheds.
Early this evening, one protester believed to be suffering ill health did give himself up. The others are refusing to move.
Elsewhere, protesters are already taking to the trees in preparation for the next fight, this time over plans for another runway at Manchester Airport.
And just for the record, the protesters who are down the tunnels are Swampy, Muppet Dave, Ian and Animal, and they're surviving on a diet of baked beans and orange juice. One wonders what the smell is down there after 6 days.
It wasn't worth saying, but you said it, didn't you? Yeah.
There is Swampy, actually, who's down a hole in Devon. As you can see, it's had to use a flash, obviously, because it's probably very dark down there with candles, but Swampy looks as if he could do with a good bath, and probably not surprising because he's been down there for 5 or 6 days.
Whisper on the breeze, a sigh among the trees. An ancient legend rises from his slumber. New life born of old, the horns of Hern unfold. The hunter is abroad again, running with the deer, the hunter's horn we hear. The stillness of the valley is broken. The guardian of the forest has awoken. Protector of the trees, a face among the leaves. Man should draw his bow.
Very snug. I mean, when you're talking about 20-30 feet underground, you've got a steady temperature of 10-15 degrees Celsius, and it's nice and dry.
The protesters say the sound of the drums can be heard deep in the tunnels below, a signal of support for the remaining human moles.
Sap flows through his veins, his heart of oak is made. In autumn with the dying leaves he falls. He will rise up tall.
This is the front door.
Here's the tunnel that Paul built. A busker by trade, he designed and helped dig the structure that held out against the mighty sheriffs of Devon for a week.
This is our only way of getting air in down there. We draw in from this pipe.
As well as the main air supply, a backup pipe in the event of collapse. This, one of the doors that kept the authorities at bay.
This just about makes it impregnable. I fitted it last week. So.
A mighty oak has grown.
There were stashes of food all over. Among the books, Gandhi's autobiography, Buddhist tracts, and
got Winnie the Pooh, one of the most comfortable books in the universe.
The anti-A30 protesters called their tunnel network Big Mama. It kept them safe, got publicity for their cause, and was so thoroughly constructed, the authorities had to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds evicting them. Wesley Kerr, BBC News.
With me now is Rosie, who has been one of the protesters. Rosie, what's the spirit of the people down below?
Excellent. They're all really happy. I spoke to the two that came that were pulled out last night, and they're all really, you know, happy that they've been down there so long. And
now you're saying there was 2 people pulled out last night. We were told there was only 1, so there's now actually only 3 people underground.
Yeah, that's right.
And who's still underground?
Well, what's more important than the actual people is what they're there for, the reasons that they're actually underground. They want to draw attention to the fact that there are these DBFO contracts, design, build, finance and operate, going out to people like Connect Consortium, and they're paying. What's happening is they're going to be paid on a basis of a shadow toll, and we're not allowed to know the conditions of those contracts. We're not allowed to know how much the public purse is going to pay for the next 30 years.
And the people underground have said that they will stay there until the government make clear exactly the terms of this tender and the contract.
We're demanding release of these contracts so that the people know what the government is selling us down the river for.
This is really a buy now, pay later way of getting roads built. If you like, it's hire purchase
on roads.
How long can they stay underground? They've been there now 5 nights. How long can they stay?
Well, if I know Swampy will be down there for weeks, he's still digging.
Thanks very much indeed.
Right.
So as you can see, the protesters are very keen. We now know that there are only 3. We knew that one was taken out late yesterday. We'll find out how the other one got out. But that's news this morning that there are now only 3 protesters. So that might make the job slightly easier, but they've still got to get them out of the network of tunnels behind me, Fiona.
Okay, Alan Fisher down in Honiton. Thank you very much indeed this morning. Thanks.
What are they living on? If we, the taxpayer, are funding the road building, we are also funding the protest as well. Mary Seabrook from Middlesex says they are right to protest. They're doing a good job. Once you've taken something away, you can't replace it. People with money always tend to win in the end. We must think of the future. Our children have to play somewhere.
Day 6 of the Fairmile protest, a brave show from campaigners, but a small victory for the sheriff's men. Late last night, tunnellers reached the first of 5 protesters and tricked him into captivity after sharing a cup of tea.
John was the one who was released by my tunnellers, going along, producing a newspaper, saying he was portrayed as a hero in the newspaper, and handing him the newspaper, so he took it with both hands, and that was their moment to take him out of the lock-on. He released it.
The 2 protesters, one a 16-year-old girl who were arrested and charged with obstruction, held a press conference to say that the sit-in should continue. John was down below for more than 90 hours.
Our living conditions were sufficiently comfortable. We haven't had any hot food or drink because we didn't have any cooking apparatus for fear of gas fumes or whatever in the tunnel. So the first cup of tea was a real treat.
I was glad that I had done what I'd come to do.
Both denied the tunnels are dangerous. Both said they wouldn't have gone underground if they thought they might die.
The only problem I had was that, like if you spend a few days in bed ill, you get up and you feel wobbly. My legs were a bit funny when I came out, but that's all.
Recovering from more than 90 hours underground, tonight denied she was ever at risk.
It was their own shoring that collapsed and not ours. There's no way that I could have been in the tunnel in an event where it might collapse, because the stuff that they did that made the tunnel unstable, they did as part of getting me out.
I think these were probably the softer 2. And it remains to be seen, but we really anticipate it will possibly take us a couple of days now to do all the shoring properly so that we can go in further.
The human moulds are refusing to come out of their complex maze of burrows, shafts and chambers, and it's understood that one of them, Swampy, is still digging without any supports.
Isn't it now time to end the protest?
Not at all. The people still in there are still protesting and will continue to do so until the conditions are complied with.
Glad that 2 people have been brought out safely and unharmed. I hope that 3 people will be brought out safely and unharmed whenever they choose to come out.
Each door we've gone through, we've heard them the other side. As we've gone through, they've gone to the next one. You can hear them actually nailing up the next door.
At Westminster, unexpected calls of support from a group occupying a crane opposite the Houses of Parliament.
How's things happening there then?
We've still got 3 people down under.
Are they still sort of shoring the way through there?
They're shoring their way bit by bit towards them, yeah.
The specialists employed by the undersheriff to get them out have been telling them today they're crazy to stay down.
2 more are still refusing to come out despite warnings that the tunnels are collapsing around them.
They were advised not to go down in the first place. They were told the tunnels were dangerous. The fact that we are now having partial collapses confirms that the tunnels are dangerous. It confirms how perilous it is. And yet they're still down there, well, possibly digging it.
Sweep these streets clean to the groove. Rise from the iron
amazing picture, going underground, the anti-road protester Swampy, who's thought to be tunnelling deeper and deeper, even that's despite the partial collapse of some of those tunnels yesterday.
The protester, known as Muppet Dave, has been charged with obstructing the sheriff and has been taken to an Exeter police station.
He had spent 7 days in the maze of tunnels and chambers which run under the camp at Fairmile. He was eventually caught in a side passage off the tunnel nicknamed Big Mama.
At night she does come on. Dragon eyes glowing, fire on beacons burning, the creature of crystal pulsing.
It seems really that a stalemate situation may be beginning to establish itself, whereby the protesters are not going to budge an inch and the authorities have not yet begun to listen to the conditions we're asking them to.
Only one protester, known as Swampy, is still underground.
7 nights in a tunnel, and Ian agreed to come out for a cigarette, coffee and a press conference, but why endure dark, inhospitable conditions, followed by arrest?
To defend the land, you know, to try and make the point, to raise the public issue and put it into the public eye, what is going on here.
Swampy is the only mole left, and he's still digging. He's somewhere off this 18-foot shaft, and the man in the balaclava is out to get him. The authorities certainly believe Swampy is committed to the cause, but in the end they say it'll do him no good.
No arrest. But I'll offer him a cup of coffee if he comes quietly.
The police operation to remove protesters from the 3 camps along the route of the A30 improvement scheme has so far cost about £500,000.
He would be happy for them to go by negotiation as long as the terms are right.
I mean, could you cope with a highly public withdrawal, as it were, for the sake of ending all this?
Oh yes, I'm not fussed about that. If they go, I'm delighted. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Hello, good morning to you at home. Well, as you may have seen on the news, Swampy, the last of the human moles who tunnelled under the A30 down in Devon, was finally unearthed last night. He and his fellow campaigners had disrupted the £65 million road improvement scheme for a week and cost the taxpayer a reported £500,000 for the police and security cover. This was the latest in a long line of public protests about everything from road schemes to the exportation of live animals. And increasingly, it's not just young and allegedly professional agitators who are involved, but also older people, many of them women. But what do these protests actually achieve? That's what we're discussing this morning with the protesters themselves and some people who claim, anyway, that the protesters are just a bunch of troublemakers. Let's go first, I hope, live to Devon, where for a week now, as I said, the protesters have been tunnelling under the earth there in a bid to stop this road improvement scheme. We're joined by Dr. Adrian Rogers, a prospective Tory candidate in that part of the world. They came out in the end, good morning Adrian, they came out in the end through peaceful negotiation. What would you have had happen to these people?
Well, I would have flushed them out with something that would have worked, either soap and water or some sort of irritant gas. I mean, it's a road that we need. I hate to see trees go, I hate to see our countryside diminished, but lives are lost on this road. And these people have cost £100,000 each over the last few days.
Are you serious?
Peaceful.
Are you serious when you say you'd have gassed these people out?
Yeah, flush them out, cut off their supplies, stop the press, whatever it takes to get them out. Because what they've done is they've held us all a hostage by their personal safety. And it's cost us in hundreds of thousands of pounds that we could have spent on health or education or whatever.
Well, alongside you is one of, well, you've got a strong reaction here in the studio in London, but alongside you is one of the protesters, Elmer. I don't know whether you were underground, Elmer, but you were certainly there lending support. What do you say to what Dr. Rogers has just said?
Very difficult to answer something like that, really.
protesters on the Honiton-Exeter Road? Are they encouraging anarchy, or are they doing the right democratic thing and enhancing our traditions? I should say that tonight the news is that all of them are now out, including Swampy, who was 30 feet down and burrowing hard this morning. They're all out. Marianne Ceefax, democracy or anarchy?
I wish I could say I had as exciting a nickname as they have, sadly not.
Animal, you could be called.
Animal, well, try if you like. Don't know what I call you in return. The awful thing is I can't help but have a sneaking admiration for these people. And I know that I shouldn't, really.
Ah, right. We needn't sneak about it any longer.
Well, I think I probably shouldn't, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who believe this road ought to be built and it will help traffic congestion in their areas, and just because they're not prepared to go and tunnel under it, you know, their views aren't heard as loudly as those of Swampy or Animal. But I do actually think that in a democratic society, people should be allowed to exercise protest and civil disobedience as long as they are prepared to take the consequences. And if that means being charged for obstruction, then so be it. So be it.
Been on holiday down here, many of them, for months and months, and we've been paying for it.
All right,
it's really quite ludicrous.
Let's just come back to
when they get arrested, we pay for their legal aid, we put them up in prison. They're a disgrace to the youth of our society. They really are.
Okay, the lady over here is a professor. She described herself to me as an activist in many campaigns. Do you think it's right? Do you think it's fair that people, however strongly they may feel about an issue like this, should actually at the same time be seeking the job seekers allowance?
Oh, of course. They're doing a job. They're doing a brilliant job down there. It's no fun.
Who for?
It's no... For England. This chap over here... This chap over here and him who's just been on TV, he's the same sort... They're the same sort of people that on New Year's Eve stand in church singing Milton's Green and Pleasant Lands and getting all full of themselves, and then they're going out and destroying it.
It's a real waste of money.
We're warring for England.
Yeah.
We're on the side of King Arthur, Robin Hood, all these type of people.
There was a round of applause for Swampy. I didn't know anybody wanted to support it. There was a man in the centre there with a beard.
Yes, I take my hat off from all of these human moles, as you call them in the press. These people bring over far more what is down to earth and what is needed in this country than you politicians. You want to talk about Toyota coming here and building more cars. You want to sell more cars. Who to? To China? Where are you going to sell all these cars? BMW, Siemens, all these people coming here wanting to give us jobs. What we need is trams. We need... Yes, we need more trams.
Okay, just a tick. Let me ask you.
Yes.
To get the job seekers allowance, as I understand it, you've got to prove that you've been actively seeking work, and you've got to secure a home. Those are the two main criteria. How does anyone down there in a tunnel or living up a tree prove that?
England.
That's a technical point. The real waste of money is for politicians. The waste of money is for politicians talking about gassing people down holes rather than engaging in a debate about road building and the right of people to protest in a democracy. That's the waste of money. If you want to talk about value for money in our transport system, the best value for money we're going to get is by people digging holes under the ground. £17 billion has been wiped off the roads programme in this country in the last 5 years because of people standing up for what they believe in. Politicians will stand up for nothing except their own self-vested interest.
I want to go back, just to go back. Thanks very much.
The woman in red behind, sorry. Yes, the woman at the very back there, you, madam.
To return to the terms of the question,
yes, that might be
surely they're not mutually exclusive, are they?
Democracy and anarchy? I thought they might be, aren't they?
Well,
can they live
surely
side by side?
Some of the most conspicuous and important progress has come through anarchic action.
Yes. Jack Straw? Well, some of the most important progress has come through anarchic action.
Not through anarchic action, but certainly through protest.
I'm taking the terms of the question.
Yes, I certainly take the view that peaceful protest has an important role to play in a democracy.
Sounds to me, Adrian Rogers, quite frankly, that, you know, as Robert was saying, gas wasn't needed, negotiation ended. It sounds like a delightfully British protest to me.
A very expensive protest, and if it's repeated elsewhere in the country, it'll bring the country to a halt. Any one of us now will dig a tunnel, decide that our personal safety comes before anything else.
Okay,
you can't allow that to continue.
Thanks very, very much indeed for joining us.